I haven't slept in 3 days because every time I close my eyes, I see his face turning blue. The words tore out of Rowan Reynolds before she could stop them, her voice cracking like old glass in the humid darkness of Mel's Diner on Atlantic Avenue. 3:22 in the morning. The checkered floor reflected neon lights through grimy windows, and the air hung so thick it seemed to cling to her skin, to her throat, making each breath feel like drowning in slow motion. She sat in a sticky vinyl booth, the kind that had absorbed decades of spilled coffee and broken promises, her small son Oliver asleep against her shoulder, his 7-year-old body limp as a cloth doll, his breathing shallow and labored, barely there at all. She had $2 in her pocket. 2. All the money left in the world. The diner door opened, and Nicholas Ferraro walked in like a blade cutting through butter, his presence so absolute that even the fluorescent light seemed to dim in acknowledgement. He was tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the kind of deliberate control that came from never needing to hurry. His tailored suit was charcoal gray, the fabric worth more than everything Rowan had ever owned, and it hung on him like it had been painted by someone who understood power. His face was all sharp angles, dark eyes that burned with something cold and ancient, and a scar ran from his left temple to his cheekbone like a white blade. Rocco and Pietro flanked him, their own suits black, their own eyes scanning the diner with the practiced efficiency of men who knew how to recognize threats in empty booths and corner shadows. Nicholas froze. His hand remained on the door frame, his body absolutely still, because he was staring not at the desperate woman or her dying child, but at the scar on the boy's neck. A crescent-shaped mark, small and pale, visible just above the collar of Oliver's sleep shirt. Rowan's voice trembled as she spoke. "Please. I'm begging you. I know who you are. Everyone knows who you are. I wouldn't come to you if I had anywhere else to go, but I don't. I have 7 days to find $65,000 for his heart surgery, and I have nothing. No one will lend to me. No one will hire me. Harold, my ex, he made sure of that. He made sure I was invisible." She shifted Oliver slightly, her protective arm tightening around his small body. "I work doubles at the hospital cafeteria. I take whatever shifts they give me. But even if I worked every single night for the next year, I couldn't save enough. His heart is failing. The doctor said if he doesn't get this surgery, if I can't get him this surgery in 7 days, then—" She couldn't finish. Her throat closed. Tears started moving down her face like she had no control over them anymore, and she probably didn't. Nicholas took one step into the diner. Then another. His shoes, Italian leather, probably $3,000, made no sound on the checkered floor. "Where did you get this child?" His voice was nothing like what his men expected. It wasn't cold. It wasn't cruel. It sounded like something broken trying to remember how to speak. Rowan's arms tightened around Oliver. Protective. Desperate. He's mine. He's been mine for 5 years. I've been protecting him since the day I got him out of that place, and I would die before I let anyone take him from me. I would die. The stale smell of coffee mixed with grease hung in the air. Distant thunder rolled across the Boston sky outside, the kind of sound that meant the humidity was about to break into rain. Rocco exchanged a look with Pietro. In 15 years of working for Nicholas Ferraro, neither had ever seen him stand this still. Neither had ever seen his face look like this, like something was cracking open inside his chest and he couldn't stop it. "What's his name?" Nicholas asked. "Oliver. Oliver." He repeated it like he was testing the shape of it in his mouth, like the name itself meant something. "How old?" 7. He'll be 8 in November. Rowan's voice was barely a whisper now. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have approached you like this. I shouldn't have said anything. I saw you come in and I was so tired and I thought maybe if I could just ask, maybe if I could just explain." She trailed off, her hand moving to smooth Oliver's hair back from his forehead, that automatic gesture mothers make when they're terrified and there's nothing else they can do. Nicholas reached out. His hand was large, scarred, the hand of a man who had built his empire through violence and will. But when it touched Oliver's neck, when his fingers traced that crescent scar, his entire body went rigid. "Rocco! Call Dr. Marino. Tell him I'm bringing in a patient. Tell him money is not a factor. Tell him I need the best cardiologist in New England standing in that operating room." His voice was ice now, but it wasn't directed at Rowan. It was directed at a world that had let this child suffer. "So?" Rocco stepped closer, confused. "Now." Rocco pulled out his phone and walked toward the kitchen. Pietro remained motionless, watching his boss with an expression somewhere between confusion and something like awe, because in 15 years he had never heard Nicholas Ferraro ask for anything. He took. He commanded. He destroyed. But he did not beg. He did not plead. He did not sound like a man whose heart had just been handed to him in a booth at a diner at 3 in the morning. Rowan couldn't move. Couldn't breathe properly. "I don't understand. Why would you? What's happening?" Nicholas sat down across from her in the booth. Not beside her. Across, so he could see Oliver's face, so he could see that scar again and again, confirming what his body already knew. "Because 5 years ago, my daughter was taken," he said, his voice like venom, like a curse that could not be erased. "She was 5 years old. She had a heart condition. She needed surgery. Her mother had just died, and I was protecting her the only way I knew how. But there was a man. A rival. He took her from the safe house. We searched for 3 years. 3 years, and we found nothing. No body. No ransom demand. Nothing. Just gone." He leaned closer, his dark eyes burning into Rowan's. "This scar. This exact scar. My daughter was born with it. The cardiologist said 1 in 2 million children have it. 1 in 2 million. Rowan's hand started shaking. She pulled Oliver closer, and her voice came out broken, fragmented. "I found him. I found him at St. Mary's Hospital 5 years ago. He was in the pediatric ward with no family listed, no emergency contact, nothing. They said he was brought in by a woman who left him there. Just left him. He was barely alive, and she left him. I was working there, and I saw him, and something in me just snapped. I couldn't leave him. I couldn't watch him become another ghost in the system. So I took him. I checked him out against medical advice, and I took him." She was crying now, really crying, her shoulders shaking. "I've been protecting him ever since. I've been keeping him safe. I never knew where he came from. I never knew who he belonged to. I just knew that he was mine, and I would do anything, I would give anything, to keep him alive." The diner was so quiet you could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the buzz of the neon sign outside, the distant sound of an ambulance several blocks away, moving through the Boston night like a heartbeat. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now, let us go back to the beginning, to 3 hours before this moment, when Rowan Reynolds was just trying to survive one more night. She didn't know that the man who just sat down across from her carried around 5 years old. She didn't know that every choice she had made to keep Oliver safe had been leading her directly toward this moment, toward this diner, toward the only person in the world who could help her because he had the most to lose and the most to gain. Sometimes the person who seems invisible carries the greatest light. And sometimes, that light can change everything. 3 hours earlier, at 12:15 in the morning, Rowan Reynolds stood in a gas station bathroom on Dorchester Avenue, and the fluorescent lights above her head hummed like something dying. The sink was stained yellow from decades of use. The soap dispenser was empty. She used paper towels and water, cold water from the tap, to wash her son's face while he stood half asleep in front of the mirror, his 7-year-old body small and fragile in the reflection. His name was Oliver, and he had a scar on his neck the size of a dime from his first open-heart surgery at 3 years old. She changed his shirt carefully, peeling away the damp cotton, and as she did, his medical alert bracelet caught the light. Congenital heart defect. Valve replacement recommended. Do not exert. She pulled his clean shirt down over the bracelet, hiding it, sliding the plastic band up under the cuff so no one could see. As if hiding it made it less real. As if the world didn't already know her son was broken. Her hands trembled as she reached into her backpack and pulled out his prescription bottle. 3 pills left. She had counted them that morning, and she counted them again now in the bathroom light, shaking them into her palm like they were gold. 3 days remaining. His heart medication cost $480 a month, and she had not filled his prescription in 5 weeks. In her jeans pocket, she had $2. 2 crumpled singles she had earned from returning glass bottles to the recycling center behind the grocery store on Washington Street. The cashier had given her the money without looking at her. She had not looked at him either. "Are we going to sleep now, Mommy?" Oliver asked, his voice barely a whisper. She knelt down and kissed his forehead. "Yes, baby. We're going to sleep now." They left the gas station at 12:42, and the August heat hit her like a wall of wet cloth. The humidity made the air thick enough to taste. She carried Oliver against her hip, his head resting on her shoulder, his small body already heavy with exhaustion. 6 blocks to the Warren Street shelter. 6 blocks through the Boston night, past closed storefronts and abandoned parking lots, past the places where men in shadows watched her pass. The shelter was a converted school building, 3 stories of brick the color of dried blood. A yellow light burned above the entrance. Rowan pushed through the glass doors at 1:15 in the morning, and Susan, the night manager, looked up from her desk. Susan had kind eyes, tired eyes, eyes that had seen too much suffering to be surprised by anything anymore. But when she saw Rowan, something shifted in her face. "I'm sorry," Susan said before Rowan could even speak. "Sorry for what?" Rowan's voice was steady, but her chest had begun to tighten. "The Blackwood Foundation. They called this afternoon. They've been buying out beds at shelters all across the city. Your spot's been reassigned." Susan didn't meet her eyes. "Effective immediately." "I don't understand." "I have references. I'm approved. I've been staying here for 3 months." "I know. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. It's not my decision." Rowan turned and walked back out into the heat, and she did not let herself cry. Oliver was asleep. If she cried, he would feel it. If she cried, he would know that she didn't have a plan, that she had never had a plan, that every choice she had made since the day she pulled him out of Children's Hospital was one step ahead of catastrophe and nothing more. She carried him to a small park 3 blocks away. The park had a bench made of wood, old wood splintered and weathered, and she sat down with Oliver's head in her lap. The night was so dark you could barely see the trees. Above her, thunder rumbled closer, and the wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain coming from the harbor. She reached into her backpack and pulled out the letter. It was worn soft from being handled so many times, the edges curled, the paper yellowed. The envelope was long gone. What remained was a single sheet, folded in half, dated 8 years ago. The letterhead read Boston University. The salutation read Dear Ms. Reynolds. The body of the letter explained that she had been selected for full scholarship based on her exceptional essay about escape and survival. Full tuition. Full room and board. Everything paid. She had been 19 years old when that letter arrived. She had been brilliant. She had been destined for something. On the back of the letter, written in red pen in her own handwriting, were the numbers that had replaced her future. $65,000 in 7 days, valve replacement surgery, Dr. Chen, Children's Hospital Boston. She had written those numbers the day she admitted Oliver to the hospital for his preliminary evaluation. She had written them understanding exactly what they meant. 7 days. That was the deadline Dr. Chen had given her. The valve would continue to deteriorate. The surgery would become more dangerous. In 7 days, the price would increase. In 14 days, it would be too late. After that, it would simply be a matter of how long a damaged heart could keep beating inside a boy who had done nothing wrong except be born with a defect and be loved by a woman with nothing. Her phone buzzed at 1:02. Unknown number. She should not have answered. She knew she should not have answered. But her hands moved without her permission, and the phone was against her ear, and a voice she had not heard in 3 months filled the darkness. "So you got kicked out of the shelter, Rowan?" "Harold Brennan." His voice was smooth like oil, like something that slid under your skin and poisoned you from the inside. She knew his voice the way a prey animal knows the voice of a predator, a knowledge that lives in the body, not the mind. "How did you?" "I know everything you do. I know where you sleep. I know where your son eats. I know that you returned bottles for $2 today. I know that you have exactly $2 in your pocket right now." He paused. "I know you better than you know yourself. Stay away from us," she whispered, and she ended the call. Her hands were shaking. She held Oliver closer, feeling his small heartbeat against her leg, feeling the fragile rhythm of a machine that was slowly failing. Thunder cracked directly overhead, close enough to feel in her teeth. The rain started then, heavy and sudden, the kind of rain that came with Boston summers, warm and suffocating. She pulled Oliver closer, shielding him with her body even though her clothes were already soaked. She had no shelter. She had no money. She had no plan beyond the next hour. At 2:45 in the morning, desperate and running out of places to exist, Rowan Reynolds carried her sleeping son toward the only place that would let her sit without questions. Mel's Diner on Atlantic Avenue. The lights were on. The door was unlocked. She had $2, and a cup of coffee cost $1.50. She could afford to sit there for 1 hour. Maybe 2 if she ordered just water for the refills. As she pushed through the glass door into the fluorescent brightness, she did not notice the black Mercedes sedan pulling up to the curb outside. She did not notice the 3 men stepping out into the humid night, their suits immaculate despite the heat, their movements precise and coordinated like men accustomed to being obeyed. She did not notice the driver remaining at the wheel, the engine running, ready for anything. The first man through the diner door was Nicholas Ferraro, and the moment he walked inside, the entire restaurant recognized the shift in the air. The way the light seemed to change. The way the other patrons' shoulders tightened, instinctively making themselves smaller, invisible. He was tall, 6'2", with shoulders that filled the doorway. His suit was charcoal gray, tailored so precisely that every line of it seemed intentional, purposeful. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the dark hair on his chest and a thin gold chain disappearing beneath the fabric. His hair was dark, almost black, silvered at the temples with a distinction that made him look both younger and older than his 42 years. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, and they moved across the diner with the systematic precision of a general surveying a battlefield. Behind him came Rocco, broad-shouldered and scarred down the left side of his face from eye to jawline, a reminder of a war from before you were born. And then Pietro, younger, hungrier, his suit slightly sharper, his eyes still learning how to carry violence. They had come to Mel's Diner for one reason. Rocco had received word that Harold Brennan had been asking questions about a woman and a boy. Brennan, who owed the Ferraro family $40,000 from a poker game gone wrong. Brennan, who had been skimming money from shipments coming through the Boston harbor. Brennan, whose debt had been marked for collection. But Nicholas Ferraro stopped walking the moment he saw her. Rowan was sitting in a booth in the back corner, Oliver asleep against her shoulder. The boy's head rested in the hollow of her collarbone, his hand gripping the fabric of her shirt. His breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible. And on his neck, visible in the harsh diner light, was a scar. A thin, precise surgical scar. Exactly the size and shape of the scar his own daughter had carried 5 years ago before she disappeared. The room held its breath. Nicholas Ferraro had not moved. His hand had not reached for his gun. His face had not shown the calculation that normally preceded action. He had simply stopped, and in stopping, everything that came after changed, though no one in that diner could have known it yet. The humid August night pressed against the windows of Mel's Diner like a living thing. Inside, the checkered floor stretched beneath fluorescent lights that hummed with a sound like insects dying slowly. Rowan Reynolds sat in the corner booth, the one with the torn red vinyl that caught on her jacket, and watched her daughter sleep. Oliver's breathing came shallow and irregular. Each exhale rattled slightly, a wet sound that made Rowan's chest tighten. The girl's small hand gripped the fabric of Rowan's shirt with the unconscious desperation of a child who'd learned early that people leave. Her scar, thin, precise, a crescent moon on her neck from a dog bite nobody remembered giving her, caught the harsh light and threw a shadow like a blade. Rowan had $2 in her pocket. 2 crumpled bills folded so many times they felt like cloth instead of currency. In her backpack, the torn college acceptance letter sat in its plastic baggie alongside 3 pairs of socks, 2 underwear sets, a toothbrush, and Oliver's medical records. The letter still had the red pen notes on the back, the surgery deadline circled 7 times. 7 days until her daughter's congenital heart condition became inoperable. 7 days until the valve in Oliver's heart would fail completely, and no surgeon could fix it. Jenny, the night waitress, approached with a pot of black coffee. She'd worked Mel's for 12 years and recognized the look on Rowan's face. Not the exhaustion, everyone on this shift wore that like a second skin. But the particular hollowness of someone choosing between impossible choices. "She okay, honey?" Jenny poured the coffee into a chipped mug. "Just tired." Rowan wrapped her hands around the warmth. "We're managing." But her hands trembled, and the cup rattled against the saucer like wind chimes in a storm. Oliver shifted, and that cough came again, deeper now, the sound of a body failing in small increments. Jenny's jaw tightened. She'd heard that cough before, working in a diner where poor people came to count their money and pray it would be enough. It never was. At 3:15 a.m., the door opened. The 3 men who entered didn't belong in Mel's diner any more than pearls belonged in a grease trap. Nicholas Ferraro came first, moving through the restaurant like a shadow with substance. He was 6'2", broad-shouldered in a suit that cost more than Rowan's monthly rent, back when she had rent. His hair was dark, almost black, silvered at the temples with a distinction that made him look both younger and older than his 42 years. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, and they moved across the diner with the systematic precision of a general surveying a battlefield. A scar ran from the corner of his left eye to his jawline, pale, old, a map of violence survived. Jenny's coffee pot nearly slipped from her fingers. Behind Nicholas came Rocco, broad-shouldered and scarred down the left side of his face from eye to jawline, a permanent reminder of a war from before anyone in the diner was born. His hands were the size of dinner plates, and he moved like he was perpetually restraining his own strength. Then Pietro, younger, hungrier, his suit slightly sharper, his eyes still learning how to carry the weight of being dangerous. They had come to Mel's diner for one reason. Rocco had received word that Harold Brennan, the violent ex-boyfriend who owed the Ferraro family $40,000 from a poker game gone wrong, had been asking questions about a woman and a boy. Brennan, who'd been skimming money from shipments coming through the Boston harbor. Brennan, whose debt had been marked for collection. But Nicholas Ferraro stopped walking the moment he saw her. He saw Rowan in the booth in the back corner. He saw Oliver asleep against her shoulder, the girl's hand gripping fabric like it was the only solid thing in the world. He saw the shallow breathing. And on the girl's neck, visible in the harsh diner light, he saw a scar. A thin, precise surgical scar. Exactly the size and shape of the scar his own daughter had carried. The room held its breath without knowing why. Nicholas didn't move. His hand didn't reach for the gun at his hip. His face didn't show the calculation that normally preceded action in a man like him. He simply stopped, and in stopping, everything that came after changed, though no one in that diner could have known it yet. Rocco noticed immediately. "Boss?" Nicholas didn't answer. He was staring at a child with a crescent scar on her neck, the same scar his daughter had from a dog bite when she was 2 years old. His daughter, who'd been taken from a safe house 5 years ago. His daughter, who he'd spent 5 years trying to find while moving through the underworld like a ghost, trusting no one, feeling nothing, sleeping 3 hours a night if he slept at all. "That's impossible," he whispered. Never whispered. That was the thing that made Rocco exchange a look with Pietro. In 15 years of working for Nicholas Ferraro, neither man had ever heard him whisper. Nicholas walked toward the booth. His movements were careful, deliberate, nothing like the predatory grace he usually carried. He moved like a man approaching something fragile, something that might shatter if he breathed too hard. Rowan's maternal instinct flared the moment he approached. She pulled Oliver closer, her entire body shifting into the posture of protection. A mother ready to die for what she held. "How long have you had him?" Nicholas asked, his voice like gravel and silk. "She's not a him. Oliver is my daughter. I've protected her for 5 years, and I won't let anyone take her from me." The pronoun hung in the air between them like a secret. Rocco and Pietro's hands moved toward their weapons, but Nicholas raised one hand, just one finger, really, and both men froze. His eyes never left the sleeping child. He sat down across from Rowan without asking permission. The booth groaned under his weight. The humid air pressed through the diner's rattling air conditioner, thick and suffocating. "I'm not here to hurt you," Nicholas said, and the gentleness in his voice was something his men had never heard before. "But I need to understand. That scar on her neck. Where did it come from?" "A dog bite." Rowan's arms tightened around Oliver. "Before I found her." "Found her?" 5 years ago, I was at St. Mary's shelter on Commonwealth. A social worker brought a little girl, maybe 2 years old, said her mother died, no other family. They asked if I'd foster her temporarily. I said yes. Rowan's voice trembled. Then the social worker disappeared. No follow-up. No paperwork. Just nothing. Like the system forgot she existed. Nicholas's jaw tightened. What was the social worker's name? I don't remember. A woman. Professional. Expensive clothes. She had this way of talking that made you feel like you were beneath her, even though you were taking a child she couldn't place anywhere else. Nicholas pulled out his phone with hands that shook slightly, barely perceptible, but Rocco saw it. Rocco had worked for this man long enough to know that Nicholas Ferraro's hands did not shake. He showed Rowan a photo of a little girl with dark hair and the same crescent scar on her neck. "This was my daughter. Taken from a safe house 5 years ago. I've been searching ever since." Rowan's face went white. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. "DNA test," Nicholas said. "Tomorrow. I'll pay for everything. If I'm right, if she's mine, then." He stopped. His composure cracked like ice under pressure. "Then I've been looking for her while she's been sleeping in shelters." Rocco stepped forward, the shock evident on his scarred face. "Boss, in 15 years, I've never seen you like this." Pietro added quietly, "Never thought I'd see you sit across from a woman in a diner at 3 a.m. Rowan's resistance came automatic, a wall built from years of disappointment. "Why would you help me? I'm nobody. I sleep in my car half the time. I wash up in gas station bathrooms. Everything I own fits in that backpack. Even if she's yours, why would you trust me with her?" Nicholas met her eyes directly. "Because you've kept her alive for 5 years when I couldn't. Because you're here at 3 a.m. with $2 in your pocket, trying to figure out how to save her. That's not nobody. That's everything." The moment hung between them, fragile and enormous. Oliver woke up coughing. The sound was worse now, a wet rattle that made Nicholas's expression shift from wonder to something close to fear. "She needs medicine," Rowan said desperately. "Her heart condition. She needs a valve replacement surgery. It costs $65,000 and I have 7 days before Dr. Chen at Children's Hospital says it becomes too dangerous. I have $2. $2. She pulled out the crumpled bills, spread them on the sticky table. "I've been trying to figure out how to rob a bank without getting caught because I'd rather go to prison than watch her die." Nicholas stared at the torn letter, the one with the red pen marks that screamed deadline. Boston University. Full scholarship. You gave up college for her? I gave up everything for her. She's my daughter. Biology doesn't matter. Nicholas pulled out his phone. Made one call. His voice was steady now, command crystalline. Dr. Chen. Nicholas Ferraro. I'm bringing a child to Children's Hospital in 1 hour. Congenital heart condition. Valve replacement. Schedule it immediately. Money is handled. He hung up. Rowan stared. $65,000 is nothing to you. It's everything to you. That makes it everything to me. Rocco's mouth actually fell open. 3 blocks away, parked in the shadows outside an abandoned warehouse, Harold Brennan sat with his hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He'd been watching Mel's diner for 20 minutes, seen Rowan through the window, seen her with 3 men in expensive suits. His phone was already dialing. Davies? Brennan. She's with someone. Some rich guys. I think she's trying to disappear with our son. His voice dripped venom. Follow them. Find out who they are. Meanwhile, in the corner booth that nobody saw, Cordelia Blackwood filmed everything on her phone. She was 45 years old, heir to the Blackwood Foundation that ran half the shelters in Boston, dressed in a cream silk blouse despite the 3 a.m. hour. She'd been the one who placed Oliver with Rowan 5 years ago, not out of kindness, but as part of a scheme to hide the child while she worked with Brennan to systematically destroy Rowan's credibility. Every shelter bed denied. Every social worker who turned away. Every apartment application rejected. All Cordelia's work, keeping Rowan invisible. She watched Nicholas take Rowan's hand across the table. She watched him smile for the first time in 5 years. She pulled out her phone and texted a single message, "The boss found her. Initiate protocol." Nicholas helped Rowan stand, kept one protective hand on Oliver's back as they walked toward the door. "My car is outside. We go to the hospital now. Rocco will handle the paperwork. Pietro will get whatever supplies you need." "I can't pay you back," Rowan said. "I'm not asking you to. You saved my daughter when I couldn't. You're saving me right now." The mutual rescue hung unspoken between them. As they stepped into the humid August night at 3:35 a.m., thunder rumbling closer with each passing second, Nicholas asked quietly, "The worst night of your life, when was it?" Rowan didn't hesitate. 5 years ago. The night I found her. The night I chose to keep her instead of staying safe. Mine too, Nicholas said. The night she was taken. They looked at each other, understanding passing between them like electricity. They were bound by shared darkness, by the same child, by the same desperate love that breaks all the rules. As they reached the Mercedes, headlights suddenly cut through the humid night behind them. A car pulled from the shadows, following. In the driver's seat, Harold Brennan gripped the wheel and smiled. The game, finally, was beginning. Children's Hospital looms against the pre-dawn darkness, its windows glowing like scattered stars in the humid Boston night. Rowan sits in a plastic chair outside Oliver's room, her body folded into itself, her arms wrapped so tight around her ribs she can barely breathe. The fluorescent lights hum their endless, hollow song. Inside the room, Dr. Chen moves around Oliver with practiced efficiency, his stethoscope catching the light as he listens to her small chest. Nicholas stands in the doorway, watching. Not the ruthless crime boss now. Just a man holding his breath, waiting for a verdict that will reshape his entire world. Dr. Chen emerges at 4:17 a.m., his white coat pristine, his exhaustion invisible behind professional composure. He looks at Rowan first. Then at Nicholas. Understanding blooms across his face like a photograph developing. "We can do the surgery in 3 days, Dr. Chen says, his voice steady and certain. "I've moved my schedule. Rearranged everything. The structural defect in her heart is correctable. She's strong enough. She's going to survive this." Rowan's legs give out. She would fall if Nicholas wasn't there, his hand catching her elbow, steadying her against gravity itself. "The cost," Rowan whispers. "I have $2. "I have?" "Covered," Dr. Chen says. "Don't ask me how. Don't ask me why. Just know that your daughter is going to live, and that's the only thing that matters right now." He walks away before she can respond, his footsteps echoing down the hallway with terrible finality. Rowan slides down the wall until she's sitting on the cold hospital floor, her back against institutional beige paint that's seen 1,000 desperate moments just like this one. Nicholas sits beside her without hesitation, his $3,000 suit absorbing the grime of linoleum, his leather shoes flat against concrete. In 15 years, Rocco has never seen him sit on a floor. In 15 years, Pietro has never seen him hold a woman's hand without violence in the gesture. "I don't deserve this," Rowan says, and her voice splinters like old glass. "I don't deserve you. I don't deserve any of this. I'm nobody. I've always been nobody." Nicholas turns to face her fully. His eyes, storm grey and relentless, lock onto hers with the intensity of a man who has spent decades reading lies and finding truth beneath them. "You are not nobody," he says, and each word lands like a bell tolling. "You saved my daughter when you could have disappeared. You chose her over safety. Over invisibility. Over survival. That makes you the most powerful person I know. And everyone who told you otherwise was lying. They were protecting their own power by keeping you small." She doesn't cry. Her tears have calcified somewhere on a Greyhound bus 3 years ago, somewhere between Boston and Vermont, somewhere between the life she had and the life that was stolen from her. But she squeezes his hand. And in that grip is everything unsaid. At 10:36 a.m., Rowan stands in the hospital cafeteria picking at eggs she doesn't want to eat. The morning light is brutal through the windows, illuminating every stain on her borrowed shirt, every mark of her 5 years running. She's been awake for 38 hours. Her eyes feel like sandpaper. Her hands shake from too much hospital coffee and not enough food. The booth across from her fills with presents before she registers the man sitting down. Harold Brennan is 6'2" with the kind of muscular build that comes from anger converted into push-ups, cold blue eyes that reflect nothing, and a smile that has never touched anything genuine in his entire life. He wears a leather jacket over a white shirt, and there's a scar tissue line running from his left eyebrow toward his temple. Rowan knows exactly how he got that scar. She gave it to him with a soup pot the night she left. "Found you," he says, and his voice is gravel and broken glass. "Thought you could hide behind some rich boyfriend? Thought money would save you? I have legal papers, Rowan. I have copies filed with the state. Oliver is my daughter. Biologically. Legally. And I have friends in the Boston Police Department who will help me take her back." Rowan's coffee cup trembles in her grip. She sets it down very carefully before she can spill it across her own hands. "Oliver isn't yours," she says, and it costs her everything to keep her voice steady. "She's never been yours. You never wanted a daughter. You wanted a possession. Something to control. And I'm not running anymore, Harold. I'm done running." Brennan leans forward, and the smell of his cologne, expensive, aggressive, suffocating, fills the space between them like a weapon. "I know where you'll sleep tonight," he whispers. "I know every shelter in this city. Every basement. Every hiding place you've ever used. And when I find you alone, when Nicholas Ferraro is too busy running his empire to protect you," he pauses, letting the threat breathe in the silence. "I'm going to remind you why you left the first time. And this time, I'm not stopping until you beg me to take her." He stands. He walks out. His footsteps across the cafeteria tile sound like the end of something. Rowan sits alone at the table. Her hand shakes so hard she can't pick up the coffee cup again. Around her, other families eat breakfast. Other children laugh. The world continues its indifference. She pulls out her phone. She has Nicholas's number now. She has access to a crime boss who could eliminate Harold Brennan with one phone call. But what right does she have? She's a homeless woman with nothing to offer. He's a man with an empire. Oliver isn't even biologically hers. Maybe Brennan is right. Maybe the only thing standing between Oliver and a real life is her. Her poverty. Her desperation. Her catastrophic, relentless bad luck. Her finger hovers over Nicholas's name. At 6:50 p.m., rain finally breaks the humid August sky open. Rowan walks 6 blocks to the parking garage where she left her car, a 1998 Honda held together with duct tape and prayer. The rain is warm and thick, soaking through her borrowed shirt within seconds. Her shoes, Nicholas's assistant's shoes, 3 sizes too large, squelch against wet concrete. The parking garage is dim and smells like oil and despair. Her car sits in the same spot where she parked it this morning. But when she gets close, her stomach drops. All 4 tires are shredded. Not punctured. Shredded. Slashed methodically with something sharp. A knife. A box cutter. A message written in rubber and violence. Rowan slides down beside her ruined car, her back against a concrete pillar, and lets the weight of 5 years crash down on her shoulders like an avalanche. The parking garage is silent except for the distant rumble of thunder rolling closer. Rain patters on concrete. Fluorescent lights hum their indifferent song. She opens her contacts. She scrolls to Nicholas's name. Her finger moves toward the delete button. Then her phone buzzes. A text message. From Nicholas's number, but the words are small and careful, written by someone who still forms letters slowly, deliberately. Someone who is 7 years old and learning that language can carry love across distance. Where are you? Oliver is asking for you. 3 words. A child's simple fact. Not asking for safety. Not demanding resources. Just asking for her. For Rowan. For the woman who chose her when choosing meant losing everything. Rowan's hand stops shaking. She stands. She wipes her eyes. She calls Nicholas. I need help, she says, and those are the hardest words she's ever spoken because they mean admitting she can't do this alone. They mean trusting. They mean being visible. Where are you? Nicholas answers immediately, and in the background she can hear Oliver, asking is it her? Is it Rowan? 11 p.m. The parking garage fills with black SUVs. Nicholas emerges from the lead car, followed by Rocco and Pietro, men whose faces are carved from granite and whose loyalty is written in bullet scars. Nicholas sees the slashed tires and his expression hardens into something cold and purely dangerous. This is the crime boss now. This is the man who runs an empire. Who, he says, and it's not a question. Rowan tells him everything. Harold Brennan. The stalking. The violence in his hands. The cops who looked the way. The legal papers claiming Oliver. The threat in the hospital cafeteria. 5 years of being hunted by a man she once loved before love revealed itself as a cage. Nicholas listens without interrupting. His jaw tightens with each detail. When she finishes, he makes one phone call. I need everything on Harold Brennan, he says, his voice like thunder traveling through wires. Everything. Banking records. Police connections. Property. Associates. By morning. And I want Cordelia Blackwood's foundation audited. Full forensic accounting. Now. He hangs up. He takes Rowan's face in his hands, gentle and careful. You're not alone anymore, he says. You understand? You're not invisible. Not to me. Not to Oliver. Not to anyone who matters. By 6 a.m., Nicholas's men have assembled a file that reads like a confession written in evidence and recorded conversations. Harold Brennan isn't just an abusive ex. He's a criminal. He's been stealing seized cash from the Boston police evidence room with the help of Lieutenant Detective Marcus Davies, taking percentages, depositing money into accounts numbered and hidden. They have bank transfers dating back 3 years. They have video footage from evidence room security cameras. They have Brennan's voice on a recorded call, negotiating prices for stolen heroin with a dealer from Mattapan. But there's more. And this is where everything crystallizes. Cordelia Blackwood's name appears in the investigation files, connected through Foundation accounts, through wire transfers, through documented communications with Brennan. 5 years ago, when Nicholas's daughter was taken from the safe house, Cordelia orchestrated it. She had the access. She had the knowledge. She used Brennan as a tool to keep Rowan desperate, homeless, invisible. Every shelter bed denied. Every social worker who turned away. All of it choreographed. All of it systematic. Cordelia has been controlling where Oliver stayed, using the Foundation's access to the shelter system, using Brennan's violence to ensure Rowan never became visible enough to escape poverty, never became successful enough to attract Nicholas's attention, never became a threat to the conspiracy. Nicholas reads the file in silence. Then he makes a call to someone in the FBI. Not a favor. An exchange. Information for information. The FBI has wanted Brennan and Davies for 2 years but couldn't build a case. Nicholas gives them everything. I want them arrested publicly, Nicholas says. Full tactical teams. News cameras. I want them destroyed systematically. And I want Rowan Reynolds there to watch it. The FBI agent agrees. Dawn comes at 5:45 a.m. on a humid Thursday morning, and it comes with tactical precision. Rowan stands beside Nicholas behind federal barriers as 12 agents in black tactical gear breach Harold Brennan's apartment in Dorchester. Cameras from 3 news stations roll. Brennan emerges in handcuffs, his face white with shock, screaming that he has connections, that Lieutenant Davies will fix this, that the cameras shouldn't be here, that this isn't how it's supposed to happen. But Davies is being arrested simultaneously across the city, led out of his Quincy home in front of his wife and children while news helicopters circle overhead like carrion birds. Brennan sees the cameras and collapses to his knees on the sidewalk, trembling like a cornered animal. Please, he begs, and his voice is gravel now, pulverized. Not the cameras. Not public. I'll give you everything. The FBI agent reads the charges. Evidence tampering. Fraud. Racketeering. Conspiracy. Federal crimes. 40 years minimum. At 7 a.m., Cordelia Blackwood is escorted out of her Foundation headquarters in handcuffs, her cream silk blouse wrinkled, her composed expression finally cracking on live television as reporters shout questions about embezzlement, about kidnapping, about systematic destruction of vulnerable women. Ms. Blackwood, is it true you embezzled $2.3 million from homeless shelter programs? Did you really help orchestrate a child's kidnapping? Her public image shatters. Her board distances themselves. Her society friends don't answer calls. By noon, every asset is frozen. Federal prison. 40 years. Total financial ruin. Justice, not death. Too quick would have been a bullet. This is systematic. Permanent. Public. This is humiliation written into every news cycle for a week. Rowan watches it all from beside Nicholas, rain starting to fall again, the humid August air finally cooling. She doesn't feel triumph. She feels the weight lifting. The invisible chains loosening. Nicholas takes her hand. It's over, he says. They can't touch you. They can't touch Oliver. It's over. And for the first time in 5 years, Rowan lets herself believe it. 3 days after the arrests, the surgical waiting room at Children's Hospital smelled like antiseptic and stale hope. Rowan Reynolds sat in a hard plastic chair that hadn't been designed for human comfort, wearing jeans and a clean shirt, both purchased by Nicholas, both expensive fabrics that still felt foreign against her skin. Her fingernails, no longer jagged and broken from dishwashing, trembled as she gripped the armrest. Across from her, Nicholas Ferraro sat with the posture of a man who conquered empires, yet his eyes tracked the clock on the wall with the singular focus of a father watching his child enter surgery. He had not spoken in 17 minutes. Rocco entered with 2 paper cups of coffee, set them on the small table between them, and withdrew without a word. The gesture carried its own language, loyalty that needed no explanation. Pietro remained in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, handling business calls that Nicholas had refused to take. The shipping company could wait. The territory disputes could wait. Nothing existed except the operating room 3 floors above them and the small girl inside it. "She's going to be fine," Rowan whispered, the words fragile like prayer. "Dr. Chen said." "I know what Dr. Chen said." Nicholas's voice emerged solid and measured, like a blade through quiet air. "Perfect valve replacement. Full recovery expected. I have known her prognosis for 48 hours. He turned his head toward Rowan. "I am not afraid of the medical outcome." Rowan understood without asking. He was afraid of the years already lost. He was afraid that even survival carried the weight of 5 years stolen, 5 years when he searched cities and hired investigators while his daughter grew from 3 years old to 8 without him. He was afraid that loving someone meant the constant terror of losing them. The clock ticked past hour 3. Then hour 4. Dr. Chen appeared at the waiting room entrance still wearing surgical scrubs, her mask pulled down to her chin, her expression clear before she spoke the words. "The surgery was successful. Perfect valve replacement. Her heart is strong, Rowan. Truly strong. She's being transferred to recovery now. She'll need monitoring, but full recovery is expected." Rowan's legs dissolved. Nicholas caught her, pulled her against his chest while she shattered into sobs, 5 years of terror releasing all at once. Every night she'd lain awake listening to Oliver's labored breathing, every shift she'd worked knowing her daughter's heart was a time bomb, every prayer she'd whispered to a god she'd stopped believing in years ago. Nicholas held her without moving, without speaking, his face pressed into her hair while his own shoulders trembled. "She's going to be okay," Rowan breathed against his chest. "She's going to be okay." "Yes," Nicholas said, his voice uneven. "She is." They were allowed into recovery at 5:16 p.m. Oliver lay small beneath white blankets, tubes and monitors creating a constellation of machines around her bed. Her chest, wrapped in surgical dressing, rose and fell with steady rhythm. Oxygen cannula under her nose. For in her tiny wrist. Her face peaceful in anesthesia's grip, the exhaustion of a child's body finally at rest. Rowan took Oliver's hand carefully, as if touching something sacred. She was. This small girl was every prayer answered, every impossible thing that became real through sheer refusal to stop fighting. Oliver's eyes fluttered. Opened slowly. Focused first on Rowan, then drifted across the room to where Nicholas stood at the foot of the bed, watching. "Are you my daddy?" Oliver asked in a voice made of sleep and confusion and a child's simple, devastating logic. The room went absolutely silent. The monitors seemed impossibly loud, beeping, hissing, the mechanical evidence of life continuing. Nicholas's composure, which had held through his father's murder, through building an empire across Boston's underworld, through 5 years of searching for a daughter he couldn't find, finally fractured. His eyes filled with tears, actual tears that broke through the ice of 15 years of calculated control. "I'd like to be," he said quietly. "If that's okay with you and your mom." Oliver looked at Rowan. The child's post-surgical mind couldn't process the full weight of the moment, only the immediate present, pain management, exhaustion, the need for answers. "Is it okay, Mama?" Rowan could barely form words. "Yes, baby. It's okay." Oliver's eyes closed again. She was already drifting back into sleep, the anesthesia pulling her under like a tide. But in those 5 seconds, everything shifted into permanent alignment. Later that evening, in Nicholas's office at the shipping company on the harbor, the legitimate front that generated real profit beneath layers of less legitimate enterprises, the DNA results arrived. 97% match. Oliver was his biological daughter. The social worker who placed her with Rowan 5 years ago, when Rowan had arrived at St. Mary's shelter with nothing but a ripped coat and a foreclosure notice, was on Cordelia Blackwood's payroll. The whole placement was orchestrated, a scheme to hide the child in plain sight within the shelter system where a crime boss would never think to search. They'd hidden her among the invisible people, in a place where society's forgotten lived and died without documentation. Rowan sat across from Nicholas's mahogany desk, the framed college acceptance letter visible on the shelf behind him. The one she'd abandoned 8 years ago when her life imploded. "She's yours," Rowan said. The words felt like surrender. "Biologically. Legally. You have every right." "She's ours," Nicholas interrupted. His hands were clasped on the desk, composed again but for the slight tremor in his fingers. "You raised her. Loved her. Chose her over your own safety every single day for 5 years. That makes you her mother. Biology is only genetics. You are family." Rowan's throat closed. "I don't know how to be in your world, Nicholas. I spent 3 hours in a diner at 3 in the morning with $2 in my pocket. I'm not equipped for this. For him. For any of it. I don't know how to be in a family," Nicholas answered. "My father was murdered when I was 15. I watched from hiding while he died. I have spent 2 decades building an empire on vengeance and isolation. I have ordered terrible things. I have become something that most people fear to speak about in daylight." He leaned forward slightly. "But I know how to protect what matters. And Oliver matters. You matter." The rain started again outside, the humid August night finally breaking apart. Thunder moved across the Boston skyline like a warning or a promise, Rowan couldn't tell which. "What happens now?" she asked. "How does this actually work?" Nicholas stood, walked to the window overlooking the harbor. Ships moved slowly through the water, lit by port lights. "Now you stop being homeless. Now Oliver recovers from her surgery in a room that doesn't leak. Now we figure out how to be a family, even though neither of us was trained for it." He turned back to face her. "I am not asking you to love me. I am not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I am asking you to stay. Build something with me. Let me give you the life you deserve." Rowan stood too, her legs steadier now. "And if I fail? If I can't do this?" "You survived 5 years in poverty raising a child with a failing heart on wages that wouldn't feed a dog. You negotiated with me when I was a stranger with violence in my shadow. You are stronger than you believe." He opened a drawer in his desk, pulled out something she thought she'd lost forever. The torn college acceptance letter. He'd had it framed. "This represents everything you gave up. I cannot give you those years back. But I can make sure you never have to give up anything again." Rowan took the framed letter with both hands, tears streaming down her face. The paper, once a symbol of a life she'd had to abandon, now represented something different. Possibility. Second chances. A future that didn't require her to choose between her child and survival. 6 months later, winter had locked Boston in its grip. The snow fell and refroze and fell again, the city transforming into a landscape of brutal beauty. Rowan sat at a kitchen table that didn't wobble, in an apartment whose windows didn't rattle with wind, helping 8-year-old Oliver with mathematics homework. The apartment was actually a penthouse, glass and steel and views that stretched across the city like they owned it. Because in a way, they did. Oliver's surgical scar had faded to nearly invisible. Her breathing had never been stronger. She laughed at something Rowan said about fractions, the sound of a child who slept through the night without fear. Nicholas came home as the winter light died at 4 in the afternoon. Oliver abandoned her homework, ran to him. "Daddy!" The word still made him pause, his expression softening in a way that shocked everyone who knew him. He lifted Oliver, held her against his coat, expensive wool, the kind that cost more than Rowan's entire wardrobe from 18 months ago. "How was school?" he asked. "Mrs. Patterson said I'm reading at a 9th grade level. And I got 100 on my math test." Oliver's pride was simple and complete. "Of course you did." Nicholas set her down gently, crossed to Rowan. He kissed the top of her head, a gesture that had become routine but never casual. "And you?" Finished my philosophy midterm. I think I did well. Rowan had enrolled at Boston University in January, finishing the degree she'd abandoned 8 years ago. She walked across campus now with textbooks and a laptop, a student among thousands, visible and unremarkable. But underneath that invisibility was something that couldn't be unseen once discovered, a woman who had survived the unsurvivable and chose to build rather than destroy. Rocco and Pietro had never adjusted to seeing their boss like this, sitting at a dinner table, helping with homework, asking about Rowan's classes with genuine interest. 15 years of working for Nicholas Ferraro, watching him move through the city like a ghost, and now he was domesticated. Transformed. Made human by two people who needed him more than they feared him. Oliver fell asleep at 9 o'clock, her body still recovering from surgery, still catching up on sleep lost to years of struggling to breathe. Rowan and Nicholas moved to the balcony overlooking Boston Harbor, where the frozen water reflected the lights of the city. The wind cut through their coats with a blade's precision, but neither moved inside. "Do you ever regret it?" Rowan asked. "That night. Helping someone you didn't know." Nicholas was silent for a long moment. "For 15 years, I was a ghost going through motions. I built power, amassed territory, ordered men to do terrible things. And I felt nothing. Like something inside me had been cauterized." He turned to look at her. "Then I walked into a diner at 3 in the morning and saw you sitting in a booth with a child who looked like she belonged to me, and I felt everything at once. Rage, fear, hope, loss, the possibility of something beyond vengeance." He took her hand. "You and Oliver made me human again." "Regret?" "Never." Rowan leaned against him, watching the harbor. Ships moved slowly through the dark water. "I had $2, Nicholas. $2 and 7 days to save my daughter's life. Now I have everything." "We have everything," he corrected. "The three of us. And it was earned through fire." Harold Brennan and Lieutenant Davies were 18 months into their 40-year federal sentences. Cordelia Blackwood lost her final appeal and was now confined to a minimum security facility that still felt like prison when her society friends refused to visit. The three of them would age in cells, their names permanently tethered to their destruction in public record. Justice, not mercy. Not quick. Systematic. Complete. Sometimes the people who seem invisible carry the greatest light. That was the truth Rowan had learned. The truth Nicholas finally understood. The truth Oliver embodied in her steady breathing, her healing heart, her simple declaration on a recovery room bed that changed everything. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a like if you believe that second chances are real. Subscribe because tomorrow we have another story about finding hope in the darkest places. And remember, you're never as invisible as you think. Someone is always watching, waiting to see your light.